The 2025 NFL Draft is just 2 weeks away. On April 24th, it all goes down, and that includes right here on the Second and Short YouTube, where we will be live for the third annual Second and Short Draft Night Special. Me, Luke, Colin, Mike, and Nathan all in person, covering every pick, every trade, and all the news live right here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications here on YouTube. And before we get into my mock draft, make sure you leave a like on this video. And throughout the video, make sure you tell me what I got wrong in the comments. All right, let's get into my mock draft 2.0. With the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Tennessee Titans take Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. At this point, I think it's very hard to deny the fact that this is the pick. Between Cam's pro day and how the Titans have handled this offseason, this just seems like it's the pick at number 1. Then the number 2 pick goes to the Cleveland Browns, and they take Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. For a couple months now, I was firm on Abdul Carter being the number 1 overall pick, and I haven't changed my opinion on him. It's just the circumstances that makes him fall to 2. I know the Browns just signed Myles Garrett to a huge extension. He still needs help. That defensive line was awful outside of Garrett last year. Abdul Carter is going to be a day 1 impact, generational talent type of player that you just can't skip on. Then with the 3rd overall pick, the New York Giants take Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback out of Colorado. Initially, I had Shedeur Sanders in this spot, but with his draft stock dropping tremendously, I had to make a change. And this pick now makes the most sense to me because Joe Shane and Brian Dable need to make a big splash here in this offseason. They really didn't do it in free agency, so the draft is where it's going to have to happen, and Travis Hunter can be that guy. Then with the 4th pick, I've got the New England Patriots taking Missouri offensive tackle Armin Membu. I will not stop saying that Membu is the best offensive tackle in this draft class, and I'm treating him as such, putting him at number 4 overall. The Patriots had a fantastic defensive free agency class. Now they go to protect their franchise quarterback Drake May with Membu. Next is the Jacksonville Jaguars picking at 5, and I've got them taking Mason Graham, defensive lineman out of Michigan. I really don't know why I can't change my mind on this pick. I've seen it so many times with other people's mock drafts. Every time I do a mock draft, it just feels like he falls to the Jags right here, and it's a perfect fit. The Jags need the help. Mason Graham's a fantastic player. It just makes a lot of sense in my mind. With that being said, I would not be surprised if the Jags do trade themselves out of this spot. I just couldn't find a trade partner that I really liked here. Now on to the 6th overall pick with the Las Vegas Raiders, and I've got them taking Jalen Walker, the edge rusher / linebacker coming out of Georgia. We can talk about the Penn State lineage and wearing number 11 and whatnot between Abdul Carter and Micah Parsons, but if you're really looking for Micah Parsons 2.0, it is Jalen Walker. Here at number 7, I've got the New York Jets taking Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU. I think the Jets will really be missing out if they don't go ahead and address offensive line early in this draft. Over the past couple of months, I've talked about how I'm not necessarily sold on Will Campbell, but there's enough other people saying it, and there's enough others that I respect and that actually know what they're talking about that are sold on him. So I'm going to give him his credit and put him here with the Jets. Now on to number 8, where I've got the Carolina Panthers taking Micah Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. I think there's a lot of ways that the Panthers could go and still vastly improve this team. But here they continue to invest in the defensive front and then elect to go for a wide receiver probably in round 2. Now on to the number 9 overall pick, where I've got the New Orleans Saints taking tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. With the injury issues that the Saints faced last year, the biggest thing they were missing was bodies to put out on the field. And I know they've got Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson, but a tight end is still very much a need in New Orleans, and I think that Tyler Warren offers a much different type of tight end than those two. And you can definitely expect him to make a major difference for this offense. Now we flip over to number 10, where the Chicago Bears are on the clock, and I've got them taking Ashton Ginty, the running back out of Boise State. It does feel a little bit weird to see him drop into the teens, but this is a clear need for Chicago, and when they see him still on the board there, I think they have to jump on it because DeAndre Swift is just not cutting it in Chicago, and they need to improve this offense if they want to help out Caleb Williams. Now with the 11th pick, the 49ers take offensive tackle Kelvin Banks out of Texas. This is one of my few repeat picks from my first mock draft, and to just put it plain and simple, Trent Williams can't play forever. With the 12th pick, I've got my first mock trade. Here, I've got Dallas trading down with the Seahawks to move up to number 12. And with this trade up, the Seahawks take Tetero McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I think we can all see why the Seahawks would trade up to this spot. And it is interesting, though, because Dallas could also take Tetero McMillan. And I think that's why Seattle finds this position as a spot to go up to. They need the wide receiver one, and there is not another wide receiver in this class like Tet. Now to the 13th pick, I've got another trade. Back-to-back trades. This time, the Bengals trade up with the Dolphins. This one I think is very tactical for the Bengals. They trade up and they pass the Cardinals and the Falcons, who are both likely to go defensive line here, and they take edge rusher Mike Green out of Marshall. Miami is definitely comfortable with trading back with this pick because of where their needs lie. They let the Bengals come up and snag Mike Green, and now he can play alongside Trey Hendrickson and likely replace him at some point. To the 14th pick, and the Indianapolis Colts retain this pick, and they take tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan. The Colts have been severely missing a good tight end for a number of years now, and Colston Loveland offers some much-needed help for Anthony Richardson because he could use all the help he can get. Now at number 15, my Atlanta Falcons take Shamar Stewart, defensive lineman / edge rusher out of Texas A&M. You don't really see guys like this that often. Between his size, his strength, and his explosiveness, he is an anomaly. The bigger surprise with him is that he just doesn't have the numbers to show it. The production just wasn't there in college, and it leaves him with a lot of boom or bust potential. Let's be honest, the Falcons are the type of team that would take a player like this, and if it doesn't work out, it won't surprise anybody. On to the 16th pick, where the Arizona Cardinals take Walter Nolan, defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. I hold Walter Nolan in very high regard, and I think with this pick, the Cardinals just continue this facelift that they're working on with their defensive line and add a fantastic guy on the interior. Now to 17, where the Dolphins traded with the Bengals, so I've got the Miami Dolphins taking Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. In my first mock draft, I had Eman Wari as the first safety off the board, and I still think on the field, you could say Eman Wari looks better. But that's not the driving factor in this pick. Miami already has talented players on this defense, and Malachi Starks, I'm not saying he's not talented, but it's what he offers as a leader and his day one impact with his experience at Georgia that makes him so much different than Eman Wari, and I think it fits what Miami's looking for. Now we get to 18, where the Cowboys are now taking that pick from Seattle with that trade earlier, and the Cowboys take Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. Dallas will likely get other picks in that trade with Seattle, but here they go for Tyler Booker because they've got to continue to bulk up this offensive line, especially with Zach Martin's retirement. And with the 19th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take linebacker Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. I know it may seem like Levante David will never stop playing football, but even if he does keep playing, it'd be nice to have a guy like Jahad Campbell on the team to work with Levante David, play alongside him, and soon replace him. On to the 20th pick, where the Denver Broncos take Omari and Hampton, the running back out of UNC. I think the Broncos are another team where they could take a number of different players at different positions with this pick and still make a big improvement to the team. But with Hampton still on the board and that glaring need for a running back, I think Denver bites on it. Now with the 21st pick, I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking quarterback Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. So I'm recording this midday on April 8th. So Aaron Rodgers is not a Steeler as of right now, which means I have to assume that the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a quarterback. I really do think that Shedeur fits the mold for what the Steelers want. They want a pocket passer, and he's extremely strong in that role. I can't speak to his off-field weaknesses, but with his on-field weaknesses, a lot of them seem like things that could just be worked out once you make it to the pros. At 22, I've got the Los Angeles Chargers taking wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas. We all know that speed kills, and with that, he cemented himself as one of the best wide receivers in this class. And I think that Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense could really use that added complement to Ladd McConkey's game. Here with the 23rd pick, I've got the Green Bay Packers taking cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan. I think Green Bay is super fortunate to have a guy like Will Johnson fall to them here at 23, and they can't pass it up. With the slight decline that we've seen from Jair Alexander, Will Johnson offers a lot of help and a potential succession plan. With the 24th pick, I've got the Minnesota Vikings taking safety Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina. There's a reason this is another repeat from Mock Draft 1, and it's because I think this is a great match. We know that Eman Wari looks outstanding on the field, and I think he'll be a big-time contributor on day one. But also the Vikings need some safety help. Cam Bynum left this offseason, and Harrison Smith is getting up there. Here at 25, I've got back-to-back repeat picks from Mock Draft 1. This time, it's the Texans taking Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. With the Laramie Tunsil trade and other ways that the Texans have approached this offseason, I think they could really use an offensive lineman with the versatility of Gray Zabel. With the 26th pick in the draft, the Los Angeles Rams take cornerback Jahdae Barron out of Texas. I do think linebacker is the number one need on this defense, but with Campbell off the board, I think that opens the door for cornerback next. And Jahdae Barron, I think, is right up there with Will Johnson for cornerback 1 in this class. So in my eyes, the Rams kind of get a steal here at 26. On to the 27th pick, where the Baltimore Ravens take Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Last year, this Ravens defense was not the elite defense that we've become accustomed to in Baltimore. They need some help up front, and Derek Harmon is an absolute beast, and he is that type of player that's going to have that day one contribution on the defensive line. Here with the 28th pick, the Detroit Lions take edge rusher Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. A couple years ago, the Lions found their franchise cornerstone with Aiden Hutchinson. But as good as he is, he still needs some help on that defensive line, and that is exactly what Ezeraku brings. And when you put these two opposite one another, it's really just going to help out both of them and the rest of your defensive line as a whole. With the 29th pick, the Washington Commanders take wide receiver Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Some people might find it a bit odd that the Commanders go for another wide receiver after already trading for Deebo Samuel, but Emeka Egbuka is the perfect pick for the Washington offense. The comp for Egbuka is his former Ohio State teammate Jackson Smith-Njigba, and with what we saw in his sophomore season, I think Jaden Daniels would not mind having his own version of that. With round 1 winding down, we get to number 30 with the Buffalo Bills taking cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. The Buffalo Bills are in a position where they can take players that still need some work, but have the ability to be great. And that, to me, is exactly what Maxwell Hairston is. Sure, on his tape, there's a couple of concerns, but you can't teach a 4.28 40 with exceptional footwork. On to the 31st pick. I've got the Kansas City Chiefs trading away this pick and trading to get the first pick in the second round with the Cleveland Browns. In their spot, the Cleveland Browns select quarterback Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. Kansas City does not need this pick whatsoever, and they are going to try and sell this off before night 1 ends. Cleveland picks first on day 2, and I wouldn't expect that the Chiefs or the Eagles would steal Jackson Dart from them, but you have to keep in mind the contract difference between a round 1 and a round 2 pick. If Cleveland and Kansas City do a straight swap, Cleveland effectively gets an extra year. Sure, they're going to pay him more, but they get the extra year of control on Jackson Dart, who they're hoping can be their next quarterback. Here it is, the final pick of the first round, the 32nd overall pick. The Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles take James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. The draft process has not treated James Pierce well. His size and strength is just not going to pass in the NFL right now, and the frame isn't exactly ideal, but the skill set is there. We know about the character issues that people talk about, but with the Eagles picking right here, they're no strangers to dropping back and picking a guy who drops in the class. I mean, they have turned plenty of questionable players into superstars, and this one might just be the next. So that does it for my round 1 mock draft 2.0. In a month's time, 27 of the 32 picks changed. I added 3 trades and plenty of other big differences in my draft board. And I'm sure that a lot more is going to change before draft day. So make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube and you turn on post notifications to know whenever anything goes down here. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok to stay up to date with what we've got going on those platforms. Of course, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. And please let me know what I got wrong in the comments. Before we go, make sure you mark your calendars. April 24th, 2025 at 7:50 p.m. We're going live right here on YouTube for the 3rd annual Second and Short Draft Night Special. Every pick, every trade, every bit of news live right here on YouTube with me, Colin, Luke, Mike, and Nathan all together in person. Make sure you listen to the podcast on Mondays and Fridays every single week right here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.